investing millions into my business, dealing with really complicated landlords and horrific eye-watering bills, dealing with a cashless society. How do you import products from abroad and sell them in the Western economies? All of that is coming up here in this YouTube video as I answer questions from all the people that have put comments on my YouTube video in the last month. There's some golden nuggets here that you can swipe and deploy into your business. Let's answer those questions. Hi James, just wondering for your toy bear business and food catering business, how do you outreach to theme parks and schools to offer your product? Really interesting. We go to trade shows, loads of exhibitions. We write letters. We send emails. We make brilliant content. We actually pick up the phone. We get in the car and go and see people. I've wrote a book called Getting Customers, How to Get Them Faster, Easier and for Less Money Than You Ever Thought Possible. I suggest you go and read it. You can get it on Amazon for 10 quid or you can go and get it on my website, jamessinclair.net. But really, you should be thinking about marketing and getting customers more than anything else. And time in the game, when you go to exhibitions, and these are expensive, I've just done an exhibition at the NEC. I reckon it's cost us £30,000 all in to take 6 people away, to pay for the travel, pay for the stand, pay for the hotel, pay for the food, pay for the fuel. But we do see, if you do trade shows in a big scale and you've got the right people going to trade shows, there's a lot of them hanging around there. If you can't afford to do that, picking up the phone, knocking on the doors, getting LinkedIn Premium, that's another great tool which costs you £50 a month and you can start talking to people on LinkedIn. Those things are the strategies and tactics that we do. Actually, also, there's another little thing. If you're going to an exhibition, make sure you keynote at those exhibitions. It's one of my top tips, because if you keynote at one of the seminars that usually happens at exhibitions, you're standing in front of 100, 200, 300 people, and then you're doing a pitch to 1 to 300. And if you're standing on stage, people think you've got authority and they'll probably come and see you at your stand. Amazing content, James. What's the best way to lease a big warehouse where if the business fails, I'm not left with any liabilities or high rent? Is there any tricks of the trade? I heard land registry is a great way to go direct to the building owner, the landlord, and also by tips, I mean deal structures, etc. Now listen, if you get into a commercial lease, it's usually from a savvy landlord. That's why they've been able to obtain the commercial property, and they're probably very unlikely to give you any concessions on that because they know that other people will just do the concessions. And if they've got a bank that's lending them the money, they have to go to the bank's covenants. The bank will lend someone the money and put a covenant on place to say that if you don't meet these covenants, we will withdraw the loan and take the property away from you. So that's why we have all these strict rules on commercial property. Now, there's some tricks that you can do that means that if the business fails, that you haven't got any liabilities, but that means you don't have protection. So you might be able to get a license to occupy agreement, which means you can only be there for 3 to 6 months, or maybe even 12 months. You'll see Christmas shops that pop up in shopping centres have license arrangements because it's for a very short period of time and they can just leave without the cost of dilapidations, which is a process of returning the building back to how you found it, and that can be very costly. A license protects you from all those things, but it doesn't give you the right of tenure. When you do go into a lease, the landlord can't just take that lease away from you, and if it's an essential part of your trade, you want that protection. So there is protections both ways. It gives you the right to be there for the amount of years that you've agreed to do it. You might even have the right to renew. Sometimes people do have that. Not often nowadays, that's changed here in the United Kingdom. But there is no real easy way of getting out of a lease unless you've got a license. And if the business does fail, you're going to have to cough up the money, especially if you've personally guaranteed the lease. So I think the answer is get a really good lawyer that knows commercial leases inside and out, that can advise you of all the pitfalls that you might have. In my experience, getting out of leases is really tough. You're just going to have to write the check. Hi James, what are the differences between cash and credit card transactions? And if you only take credit cards, and do you think generally as a country we should move towards cashless transactions? I don't think we should become a cashless society, but I think it's inevitable. It's happening faster and faster. Let me give you a quick example here. When I started out in 2007, we took 70% cash, 30% card. Fast forward now to 2023, where we take cash and card in some of our businesses, we're taking about 20% cash and 80% card. And every single year, card gets stronger and stronger. So customers are in their own right are opting to pay electronically rather than cash. That's just a fact. But sadly, what I hate about cash now is that all of our businesses become a victim of crime. The Rossi Ice Cream Parlour, for example, in the last 12 months has been broken into so many times, 4 times in 12 months, because it's seen as a cash business. Plus, it's becoming more and more expensive for businesses to deal in cash. Paying cash into a commercial business account costs you money. You have higher insurance costs and a huge labour spend in sorting out cash. And actually, I think it's more expensive to deal with cash rather than credit cards. There is a myth that credit cards take a lot of the fees from when you pay in on the credit card machines. That's got so cheap now compared to paying in cash. You can be paying in 50p for every £100 you pay into the bank, and you can pay less than 1% for credit card transactions. And you have all that insurance risk go away and all that crime risk go away. You've got no theft from staff because you're not handling cash, etc., etc. And if you're a business that banks a lot of cash, you need someone to manage all of that. It's a huge cost collecting cash with all them little secured vans that collect cash. All of that is a lot of money. So I have to say it is easier, far easier for small businesses, big businesses and medium-sized business to become cashless. Although I don't want us to be a cashless society. I think cash is really important too. Hi James, have you ever looked towards doing businesses in other countries? If so, what kind of business and what country? Or is it a thing that you would like to do in the future? It's a really interesting question that. Now, I'm a big fan. I live in the United Kingdom. There's 65 million people in the United Kingdom, and I always think there's more opportunities and it's far easier to do business at home. That said, we just sent out $20,000 worth of product to America just last week. So if I was selling product and exporting it abroad and I saw that growing, I would then look to set up a warehouse in those countries. I would like to do that in the UAE. I'd consider Ireland, and I'd consider America, because I think our teddy bears and children's arts and crafts businesses would do really well there. We use Shopify on our website. We can easily turn it on to different currencies so that we could have the same website working multiple currencies across multiple countries. But it's all about the distribution in those countries, because if you're wholesaling, you might as well just do it from the UK. You're filling containers, yada yada, that's brilliant. But if you're actually selling individual items, it's probably best that we set up products and services over there. I've also considered setting up leisure in other countries. There's some real opportunities around the west of the world, and it's become a smaller place. But my first point of contact would always be make sure existing country that you operate of is completely exhausted before you look abroad. Hi James, we have a new lease agreement from our landlord. He's put this forward, which means we pay for all issues on the industrial estate. This is usually called a service charge. All businesses put into the pot. So we could be paying for other buildings' repairs. This is slightly concerning. We do not know how drastic this cost might be, and the landlord does not want to cap the amount we pay towards maintaining the estate. Any advice? Oh, that is a FRR lease, which stands for fully repairing and insuring lease. If you've got commercial property and you've got a service charge, you just got to pay it or look for another premises. The best idea would always have the mindset that we're going to buy the property that we operate out of. Usually there is no cap on these service charges. And if it's a property that's in a really desired location, there'll be a big queue of people that want to go into it, especially if it's in the southeast of the United Kingdom. That is just the way it goes, I'm afraid. It's like having a flat in a block. You know, you're paying a service charge to cover all the maintenance of the surrounding areas of the block. That's just what happens in commercial property. Now, you can try and get your solicitors to remove all of those things, but they'll probably just put them back in. And if you don't agree to it, then you can't be there. It's just the way it is, I'm afraid. I've got no good news for you. I just want to say a big thank you to American Express for sponsoring this video. I've teamed up with Amex UK to make even more videos to help entrepreneurs and business owners grow their business. Now, specifically, I want you to watch a video on how I started my business, going from 0 to 1 million of revenue. Now, I've put it on the Amex UK YouTube channel. There's a link above my head if you want to go and watch it, and also a link in the video description. I go into detail on how I started my business. Now, it goes one step further than that, because Amex have created the Business Trends and Insights Hub. It's a resource center for entrepreneurs and business owners. It's absolutely free to check it out. I'll also put a link in the video description for that too. Let's get back to the video. Hi James, how much money did you put into the Rossi Ice Cream production facility? Really great question. Now, we built a big ice cream factory a couple of years ago. Cost quite a bit because we bought a big building. That was 1.2 million. We put about 80 grand's worth of mezzanine flooring. Then we spent 350,000 pounds of equipment, and then probably another 350,000 fitting it all out, making it look lovely. You've got ice cream freezers, big freezers, another 300,000 pounds there. All the flooring and gullies, a lot of money, well in excess of £2.5 million to set up the Rossi Ice Cream facility. But that does include mezzanines and buying the building. But if we, and I do put that in because we use that for other things, but if we hadn't have put the bought the ice cream business, we wouldn't have bought that building. So I do sort of lump that all into the one. It's been a huge investment into Rossi Ice Cream. And as the years trundle along, we need to pay it off. And that's starting to happen. James, have you ever thought of buying a construction business? As you can make money from it, but can also make the construction parts of your other businesses a lot cheaper and easier to do. Well, here's the thing. We actually do a lot of the construction in our businesses ourselves already. We have diggers, dumpers, we employ electricians, builders, maintenance, plumbers. They're all within the business. We do all our own CAD drawings. But sometimes we're doing stuff that's so big that if we did it ourselves, it would deter us from doing all the day-to-day maintenance. So every now and then, we might bring in a construction company that are really well versed, really well experienced in that particular thing that we're doing. Yes, if we're just refurbing a hotel room or building another indoor play centre, we probably do that all ourselves. But if we're building a dinosaur park and we considered that we'd never built one of those before, maybe it's best to get a specialist in, because the R&D process of us doing it ourselves, putting my brain into it and all my senior team's brain into it, will detract them from doing the other stuff that we make a lot of profit at. And it really is the R&D. When you build a business of scale, research and development is usually your top people. And if you take them off of their usual tasks, that is going to fall down, and that can be worse for you than actually paying someone else for doing it. And that's coming from a man that loves to do everything in-house wherever possible. I hope that answers the question. Hi James, in previous videos you spoke about dilapidations. This is when you exit a lease. How do you feel about dealing with that? Well, it's bloody hard work. You just have to pay the bill. You have to get a lawyer, a barrister. You fight for it. And that's why I'm very, very reluctant to take on lease property now. I'd much rather own it so that you don't have dilapidations bills. These can really kill small businesses. For those of you that don't know about this, when you lease a building, say 10 years ago, and then you leave the building, the landlord can slap a big bill on you called dilapidations to return it back to its original state. Maybe you've put a fire alarm or air conditioning or LED lighting, or you've painted the walls white and they were magnolia before. You've got to return that all back to the way it was if they're a picky landlord, and they can just put a big bill on you if you don't do it to their liking. They get a surveyor to argue with you. So what's really important is make sure you've got a good schedule of condition so you can say this is what the property looked like when you moved in. It's probably worth paying a third party to do that. So that's going to give you a lot of protection if you do go into an argument 10, 15 years into the future. I've had a £500,000 dilapidation bill before. I've had another one for £60,000, which was just a very small commercial unit. So dilapidations can really hurt you. Make sure you really understand them when you're going into a lease contract. And that's why, really, if at all possible, try and buy the buildings you operate out of. Hello, James. Great video again. He's referring to another one here. Question. You like buying businesses. Would you ever consider selling one, either for the right money or one that's difficult to manage, loss-making? Hope that makes sense. Cheers. Well, I have sold businesses before. I sold Fort Fun, which was a little theme park that we owned in Eastbourne. The right deal came along. They knocked on our door and we would sell it. I suppose the classic phrase is everything's for sale for the right price, but I am a much stronger collector of things rather than seller of things. I'm not here forever. One day I will die. And I've got to think about exit plans. And I always believe that you should be building a business to sell, even if you have no intention of selling it. That discipline really makes you build something better. Having a really good, profitable business, having a business that's been around for a number of years, that's run under effective management teams, I'd be very shocked if you don't get people knock on your door and ask to buy it. I get people asked to buy our companies or inquiries into buying our companies every single week. So one day, maybe. But the core part of my business and the people I work with is really important to me. So if I ever sold anything, it would be really important that I try and retain some of my key team. However, when people want to buy a business, your key team is really their primary objective. Because it is mine. When I'm buying a company, I'm looking at the management team, making sure there's an effective management team in place. Because what I don't want to buy is a profitable job. I want to buy a business, preferably a profitable investment. I want to put my cash in and it look like it's a profitable investment that I can leverage and grow. Hi James, amazing video. What is the best way to find manufacturers abroad? There's this thing, I'll let you into it. It begins with G and ends in Google. That's where I'd start first of all. And I would type in manufacturers abroad in Turkey, manufacturers abroad in India for the type of thing that you do. And they'll probably populate you with loads of exhibitions and shows. That's where I first started. The next thing is get on a plane and go and see those big exhibitions in Turkey, in China, in India. The NEC has loads of stuff that has coming up. You could go, if you're in the UK, you could go to the NEC Spring Fair, Autumn Fair, and go along to those, and they'll have a international division with loads of manufacturers within those areas. I found some good people there. But there's loads of agents. So if you put in manufacturing agent Turkey into Google, I think you'll find an agent that knows lots of different manufacturers. And that's probably the best place to start because they'll shop around. Yeah, they'll be making a cut. Of course they'll be making a cut. That's how they make money. But they're on the ground looking for the best suppliers for you. And countries like China, for example, the agents might not make a cut at all because they get an export tax advantage. If for anything they export, they get 3% from the government. So they actually want you to spend with them and be cheaper than the factory. They might even reduce the price by 2% to get their 1%. And if you're spending 10 million quid, they're getting 1% of 10 million without spending any money. So that's one of the things that I think has made China one of the fastest growing economies in the world, because for everything that people export, they can get 3% tax rebate or just a 3% rebate for all their exporting. What an amazing way to grow an economy. Anyone from government watching, think about this stuff. Being tax efficient grows your economy. If you like these style of videos, leave a comment on any of my videos and my team will pick up the best ones and I'll do my very best to answer them. Actually, one more thing. I also run a podcast called Business Broadcast where I coach business owners, and they literally have me for an hour saying, James, how do I deal with this? How do I do with that? How do I grow my business? And I do my very best to answer them. So go and check out the podcast as well. I'll put a link in the video description. And that's another little freebie for you. See you in the next video.